So today, a new report on the grooming gangs was published, and this one was commissioned by Keir Starmer back in February. It is the Baroness Casey one, and what it's done over the last 4 months is collate and examine most of the information that we already have. There's nothing new in this. So what Rupert Lowe is doing with his grooming gang inquiry is collecting data and victim statements, witness statements, and various other things that aren't already in the public consciousness and public record. But this one is just a summary of what is in the public record. And I've been going through it. It's 197 pages long. I'm on about 130 out of that. But I thought I would cover some of what is in there already, because it is just eye-opening, and it absolutely destroys the narratives of the defenders of the grooming gangs. So I thought we'd just go through some of what I've got. I've got a Twitter thread here that I've been doing. It's just the top thing on my Twitter at the moment, so go and read that if you want in your own time. But we'll go through it. So the first thing that sprung out was the ethnicity of the perpetrators. This is a common problem with the data that they are using, is that they found that the ethnicity of the perpetrators is shied away from and still not recorded for 2/3 of perpetrators. So we are unable to provide an accurate assessment from the nationally collected data. Why would they do that? If the perpetrators were white, why wouldn't they just record them as white? It's only if the perpetrators are from a minority ethnic background that it seems that there would be any reason at all for them not to record it, and those reasons would be for reasons of political correctness. So I think we can guess why they didn't record it, and why the data is so poor. So when they say things like, oh well, most of the perpetrators are white, you can tell them that they don't know that. This is something that is, frankly, not supported by the data. The next thing is that despite this, and this bit comes from the sort of prologue bit, they can tell that this is a problem with the Pakistani Muslim community. They say they examined 3 local police force areas in which showed disproportionate numbers of men from Asian ethnic backgrounds amongst suspects for group-based child sexual exploitation, as well as in the significant number of perpetrators of Asian ethnicity in local reviews and high-profile child sex exploitation prosecutions across the country, and this warrants further examination. So, despite the data being massively incomplete, from the data that they have, there's a massive overrepresentation of one particular community. Despite the deliberate, in my opinion, lack of accurate data connection, right? The problem of this, they say, is that this empowers the far right. The flawed data is repeatedly used to dismiss claims about Asian grooming gangs as sensationalized, biased, or untrue. This is something they refute. No, there is a problem with Asian grooming gangs. But they say this does disservice to victims, which it does, and indeed all law-abiding people in Asian communities, and plays into the hands of those who want to exploit it to sow division. Right, so the problem with this is that the far right can take advantage of it because it's true. She then goes on to point out that the South Yorkshire police themselves were just corrupt. As she says here, Alexis J pointed out in the J report that the police, she describes the police as incompetent at best, but sometimes turning a blind eye off and enabling abuse, and then corrupt at worst. So they're either useless or they're directly involved. Who is going to be arrested from this? Who is going to be prosecuted for this? This is complicity in the crimes. These are people who need to go to jail for what they've done. Anyway, continuing on, despite a consistent trend to attempt to paint all communities as being just as liable for these gangs, one report in 2012, and this is just one report, found that the evidence submissions for the ethnicity of the perpetrators, or the information about the perpetrators, was only complete in 3% of the cases, and in 68% of the cases, they did not provide any perpetrator data. What? It's just a man. We've just got a man who is involved in a grooming gang. Do we know anything about him? No, nothing about him. We don't need to know anything about him. Just a man, an abstract, universal man. He's just the what's the one from Community? The Greendale human, right? He's just that. Like, it's just no data at all on 2/3 of the cases in this one particular report. And that is just wild, isn't it? And so when they're like, oh, you know, from what we've got, it seems that most of them are white men. It's like, yeah, but there's obviously a bias towards recording the ones that were white men and not recording those ones that weren't for reasons of political correctness at best and being complicit in the actual crime at worst. So it's crazy how it's taken this long to get to this point where the government is going to have to sit down and go, right, okay, these are the facts, and let's be honest, these are all Labour-run councils and areas as well. Anyway, they say in the case of the ethnicity, many cases of group-based child sexual exploitation have involved men from Asian or Pakistani ethnic backgrounds, with exceptions always present, blah, blah, blah. Yet report after report criticises the lack of ethnicity data and calls for better data collection and research into ethnicity and cultural issues that might improve our understanding of offending and increase our chances of tackling it. That remains a gap. Yeah, not by accident, though, right? They knew, and it's been well known for a long time why this is happening, and it's happening a lot. As you can see, the official statistics show that in any given year, 17,000 children are being groomed by grooming gangs. Flagged as child exploitation victims in police-recorded crime data. That's annually. Just annually, there's about 17,000. The grooming gangs themselves are ethnically quite homogenous because, as they tell us, the offender networks are often loosely interconnected and based around existing social connections. That means, as in, they are part of the same community. They are brothers, they are cousins, they are friends, they are business partners, they have extended networks. They are broadly homogenous in age, ethnic background, and socioeconomic status. Acting within a group is likely to have a disinhibiting effect on the perpetrators, as in, they feel protected by their community. The local group that they're in is part of their community, and it will insulate them against anything from the outside. A 2020 Home Office paper noted, in several cases they examined, offenders and victims came from different communities. Oh, really? What a shock. An officer suggested that disregard from for victims from outside of the perpetrator's own community may have been an enabling factor for the offenders. This so-called othering, as in, that is a disgusting, non-group, like, whore, basically. Like, this person, because they're not one of us, they are fine to abuse. That is the attitude. I mean, look at this. Nearly 2/3 of offenders from Pakistani ethnic background, and the majority of the girls were white in Rotherham. It's not that we didn't know that. It's nice to get it down in black and white from Baroness Casey, where Keir Starmer can't deny it, where none of the left and the Labour will be able to deny it. These are the facts, and these are the facts from their own report that Keir Starmer has commissioned. They cannot deny their way out of this. So the ethnicity of the victims, of course, was only recorded in 35% of the cases. For some reason, but of those, 87% white British, so English, obviously. Very small number outside of that. And let's be honest, for the rest of the other 2/3 of the victims, probably mostly English too. And the data is just so poorly collected that when you actually just tabulate it and put not declared, that's by far the biggest percentage, obviously. It's 2/3 of it. But it just goes to show you that it dwarfs everything. And I can't imagine that this is just an accurate sort of breakdown of what's outside of it, right? It's going to be weighted towards some populations. There are some shocking figures from local police forces when it gets drilled down into it. I mean, I'm just going to quote this directly from the paper. There is a disproportionately higher Asian ethnicity and disproportionately lower white ethnicity identified in suspects across Greater Manchester's police. Was it Major Investigation Task Force, I think that MIT is? And district investigations compared with the census data of the general population of Greater Manchester and comparison with the COCAD data for all police forces are set out on the table below. As you can see, right, the 83% national, 7% national, 5%, 3%, 2%, right? But in the actual studies that they've done, 38% are suspects are white, 35% in that one, whereas in Manchester itself in 2021, it's 56.8% white. The Asian community, 20%, 21%, yet 52% and 54% of the suspects in the multi-victim, multi-offender child sexual exploitation operations. So the GMPs are the two operations that they've done, and this is the overall national ethnicity data, and this is the specific Manchester data. That is unbelievable, really. 20% of the population, yet half of all the suspects. More than. I think there's something to be talked about there, isn't there? These data show that child sexual exploitation suspects in Greater Manchester are more than twice as likely to be of Asian ethnicity compared to the proportion of the Asian population of the area. That is just remarkable, isn't it? I mean, what a staggering statistic. In some areas where we actually know the ethnicities, there are just, by absolute number, more Asian suspects than other, right? Here's West Yorkshire, and the data from 2020 to 2024, where self-defined ethnicity was recorded for 1,173 suspects, which is just over 3/4 identified. 429 of them were Asian, 413 of them were white, 281 were just blank, and if we were to break down the data just on the percentage there, 46 were black, 33 mixed, blah, 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 right? So the plurality there is that they're Asian. 35%, the largest percentage, were Asian in West Yorkshire. Again, this compares with the ethnicity profile of 16% of the population being Asian and 77% being white, suggesting a disproportionate overrepresentation of people of ethnic background, roughly double, and disproportionately underrepresentation of people of white ethnicity amongst the suspects over the period examined. I mean, is there any denying this anymore? Here's from Operation Stovewood in Rotherham, where just 2/3 of the grooming gang suspects were Pakistani. So you can see only 22% of them were English. And so, okay, there we go. Like, it is a problem that is coming out of this community, and that's just the consequence, the conclusion that they come to, right? Despite the lack of a full picture in the national datasets, there was and is enough evidence available in local police data in 3 areas that we examined, which showed disproportionate numbers of suspects from Asian ethnic backgrounds. Now, when they say Asian, they mean subcontinental, right? They mean Pakistani and Bangladeshi, as well as a significant number of perpetrators of Asian ethnicity identified in local reviews and child sexual exploitation prosecutions across the country to warrant further examination. More effort is required to identify the nature of group-based child sexual exploitation and why it appears that men of Asian and Pakistani ethnicity are disproportionately represented in some areas. Well, I tell you what, you're just not going to like the answer, right? You're not going to like the answer. This is something to do with their culture, right? It's just something to do with the way that they do things. Now, anyway, there's loads of else in this. For example, the health services knew and just turned a blind eye. This is from Telford, where they'd be like, okay, this 14-year-old keeps coming in basically day after day to get a morning after pill. Why does a 14-year-old need a morning after pill day after day? What is happening to her? And of course, they didn't care. The health services did not help them. They just turned a blind eye. Oh, this is another one of those child prostitutes that I've heard so much about. When it comes to the police themselves, they did sweet F all to try and figure out what was happening. As you can see, right, police data and intelligence is stored across multiple systems which do not communicate, right? So these systems you have to manually, as they say, search individually and manually, go through them to extract individual pieces of data yourself. None of it's joined up. None of it is, like, automated or searchable or anything like that. You have to go manually find what you're looking for and then tabulate it yourself. Whereas software to do this for you would be insanely easy to come by, right? This could have been just all put in a bloody Excel spreadsheet, like done in a joined up way from day one, but it wasn't. And imagine having 100 different systems which do not communicate with each other to store and find this information in. No wonder. I mean, and again, it can't just be an accident, right? It can't just be an accident. And of course, another thing that we get from this is, quote, instead of examining whether there is a disproportionality in ethnicity or cultural factors at play in certain types of offending, we found many examples of organizations avoiding the topic altogether for fear of appearing racist, raising community tensions, or causing community cohesion problems. So we'll let the rapes carry on because we don't want to be called racist and we don't want to upset the Pakistani community. They're just going to have to be carrying on. And so you get a level of dishonesty about this, which is just remarkable. In fact, we'll go straight to this one. For example, in 2012, when Andrew Norfolk, I think it was 2011 actually, but he ran a story in 2012 about this happening in Rotherham, right? The South Yorkshire Police and the Rotherham Council did everything they could to prevent this information from coming out, right? Norfolk said, "We thought that Rotherham Council and South Yorkshire Police would respond by saying, 'This is appalling, we'll take action.' Instead, what they did was ask South Yorkshire Police to launch a criminal inquiry into who had leaked the material to him. And, of course, they had sought an injunction to prevent the Times from publishing Norfolk's work, claiming that it would endanger girls and young women. Well, I mean, it's definitely going to endanger someone, isn't it? But you can see that they're completely complicit with it. And this, I think, is the banger bit that we just need to hammer down fully, nail it to the floor, because this is the BS that came out. You might remember the 2020 Home Office paper, which was obviously written by some just woke liars, just complete woke liars. As they say, the 2020 Home Office paper, group-based child sexual exploitation characteristics of offending, reached the conclusion that, quote, "It seems most likely that the ethnicity of group-based CSE offenders is in line with CSA more generally, with the general population, with the majority of offenders being white. It is quoted and re-quoted in official reports, the media and elsewhere as proof that claims made about Asian grooming gangs are sensationalized or untrue, though this audit found it hard to understand how the Home Office paper reached that conclusion, which does not seem to be evidenced in research or data. As we covered a minute ago, in some areas, they are just the absolute majority of the suspects. The 2020 Home Office paper about this was a fucking lie. To literally cover up for a bunch of fucking child rapists. Sorry, I'm getting so angry at this. This is just, I hate this so much that the institutions will lie to defend a bunch of foreign rapists in this country. So, actually, I have to say, so far, I am quite pleased with Baroness Casey's report. Again, there's nothing new in it. We knew all of this, but it's good to see someone from within their club just come down and go, look, everything you've been saying is a lie. Right? Everything you're saying is bollocks. It is mostly from this one community, disproportionately where it's not just an absolute majority from them. And they even say at one point, it's not racist to say this. It is just the fact, and we have to investigate it.